Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to a brand new movie review. I'm Chris Garner, joined with George. After we were just talking about this, it feels like it's been a while since you've been on one of these, but it's good to have you on for this one. And this might actually be one of our most divisive reviews in a long time. We have talked a little bit about this movie. We are reviewing WIDOWS, which is the 2018 heist movie directed by Steve McQueen. And I don't even know where we're starting on this thing because I literally don't know where to start with it.
Yeah, it's a weird one because we do a lot of divisive reviews, but we don't normally get this drama. We don't get this in dramas. We tend to almost uncertainly agree on them.
Yeah.
But this is that one where I was like, I saw it before you, and I'll just make the point that I said this is incredible. I messaged everyone after, fuck me, this is an incredible film. And then I thought Chris would love it. You said, I'm not too hyped about it. Off your word, I hope it's well. And then he messaged me the next day, and I was like, oh no. And then Tate can't make it. He missed his screening today because it fully sold out, which is good because there's not been enough screenings of this film. But yeah, WIDOWS. We're going into it first. It's the new Steve McQueen film, not the famous actor, the famous director, the director of 12 Years a Slave, Hunger and Shame. He is back with Gillian Flynn, I think that's how you pronounce it, from Gone Girl. She's wrote the script based on the 1980s ITV series, which I didn't know about until my dad told me.
I didn't even know about that either.
I'm amazed that someone like I've never seen a 1980s ITV series be adapted. They don't know what ITV is. That's one of like the main channels in England. I've never seen an ITV show been adapted into a film.
And I clicked it on Wikipedia because I didn't know about that either. I clicked that just before we went live, and the poster of it does look like one of the most like 90s things I've ever seen in my life. Or 80s? Did you say 80s or 90s? I can't remember when you said it was.
I think it's 80s, but I don't even.
They've all got like giant like permed hair and everything like that. Far cry from this new darker, grittier, more drama adaptation. I'm guessing that this is pretty much just loosely based only on name, probably, and maybe the main concept of the thing. So in terms of trailers and everything, I mean, people were talking about this movie. We've been talking about this movie as well in terms of going into Oscar season. We think this is probably going to get a bunch of nominations, maybe for adapted screenplay, maybe for, direction, lead actress, something like that. So there was a lot of talk about this movie. The trailer started coming out for it, and I didn't know what to think of it. I wasn't particularly hyped by the trailers. I thought it looked interesting. At best, it could be like a good sort of like femme fatale action movie with obviously drama elements to it. So I automatically wasn't going into this movie with much hype until you came out of the screening, and on our group chat you said film of the year, absolutely incredible, perfect. So it's kind of unavoidable. Like, you do kind of want to go in with like your own perception and like your own ideals of how the movie's going to play out, but when someone does give you that before going in, and as we've said, like, not all the time, we do have our disagreements sometimes, but usually 9 times out of 10 we are pretty much on the money with each other in terms of our reviews. So
yeah, and it's not normally this when it hit. I mean, because we are in an Oscar season yet, we're almost there. Very much the blockbusters are smalling down in scale. We've got like 1 or 2 left this year, but it's heading into that Oscar sort of terrain now. Obviously, this is a film that premiered at Toronto Film Festival, then at London Film Festival. So it's very much had its festival circuit, and now it's going to its cinema release. And you do feel that this will be around come January when the nominations start coming through. And I think it will be, especially if you look at the cast and the sort of the crew and the cast and crew. It reeks of Oscars in a nice. This isn't an Oscar bait film. I'll make that abundantly clear. This is far from this bog standard Oscar bait film, but the first trailer came out for this, and I don't think I'd ever been so hung up on such an insane song in the trailer in a long time. And everything about this film was just amazing. Just the fact that, I mean, it's called Widows. It's about a group of widows that take over a heist after all their husbands are killed. Its name's in the plot, but I was so looking forward to this. I was a big fan of 12 Years a Slave in the sense of the filmmaking standpoint, not, of course, with the actual subject matter. Because it's quite hard to sort of like anything like that unless you support Donald Trump. And basically, when that film came out, I haven't seen Hunger or Shame, but Steve McQueen's a very high reputation, and 12 Years, I say, was fantastic. This film, I'm going to say it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. And now he's a filmmaker he's directed 4 films, but he's took his time between each one.
I'd say it was 5 years between 12 Years a Slave and this one, which is quite a long time for a director.
And I think without going into sort of gender politics, in this era of let's remake Ocean's 8 with women, let's remake Ghostbusters. You know, without getting into the policies of that, this was very much a film. Okay, I didn't know it was a remake, but the concept of this film is let's just create, I mean, not badass characters as such, but let's just focus on 4 new characters that are in this situation because of what's happened on the screen. And forcing something down your throat of something you might not. Let's just do something new that's going to be a bit different from stuff you've seen before, because I haven't seen a film like this before. I've seen many dramas, I've seen many heist films. I don't even know if this is a heist film. To me, this is certainly more drama, I think, than heist. But I've not seen anything like it, and the bloody ensemble cast is magnificent.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess off the bat, like, obviously you like the film. I had a lot of problems with the film. We can talk about the cast, though, now, before I get into sort of like my main criticisms of the movie. Viola Davis is kind of the main head honcho in this movie. She is almost center stage. Yes, you do have a great ensemble cast, and you do have these this collection of 4 women, but she is the one who corrals them together. She is definitely the leader of them all. And, you know, I will say it is a great performance. There's a moment that you see in the trailer where she's, and this isn't a spoiler because, as I said, you see it in the trailer and it's kind of the basic premise of the movie anyway, where she's reeling after the events of her husband's death, and she's kind of standing in the mirror, she's getting ready for the funeral, she's kind of adjusting a suit, and she kind of lets out this scream. Very, very well acted throughout, and I do definitely think she'll get a nomination for Best Actress. My problem is mostly with the characterization of the kind of strong female action star they've gone for in this type of film. It is an ensemble, and with the exception of maybe one character, which is Elizabeth Debicki's character, none of them seem to have, in my opinion, very good character arcs. With Elizabeth Debicki's character, she is very sort of put down at the beginning. She's in an abusive, you know, like domestic violence relationship. She's very timid, and then as the film goes on, she kind of comes into her own, finds a confidence within herself, and she gets the most complete arc out of all 4, I would say. Michelle Rodriguez and Cynthia Erivo are kind of very throwaway to me. And because they're all going for this very hard-edged, tough-as-nails, strong female character, which is a fine character trait to have, when you've got an ensemble and they all have that mannerism, I did find it very boring. They all kind of have this very steely edge to them. And I think that, but when I'm trying to think about it, the concept is they're widows. So obviously they're going to be in mourning. They are going to have this sense of survival that based on the premise that this guy's kind of like hunting them and what demands his money back. But with an ensemble film like this, I am going back to stuff like Ocean's 11, where you do have these different character types, these different personalities that come together to get this heist done. And maybe that's me going back to like all the other heist movies I've seen where everyone has a unique personality to them. Not to say that it needed to be jokey or it needed more levity in it or anything like that, but I do think that the character molds are very similar across the board in this, and I think that let it down for me in terms of the main supporting cast.
See, normally I'd agree with you for this, but there's one throwaway line in the film where I'm trying to remember it because it has been a couple of days now, where they basically turn around and say, you know, I'm trying to sum up this line without being a spoiler, but it's basically, we're all in this situation together. None of us are meant to be here. We're just 4 widows that have had to do this together because of what our husbands did. And that kind of stuck with me in the sense that I kind of sort of thought, you know what, that's right. Because Michelle Rodriguez, she is the, you know, if you look at the Fast films,
she's playing the same character, really, isn't she?
Yeah, like Michelle Rodriguez, like if you want a badass like female character, then you go for Michelle Rodriguez. But this didn't feel like Michelle Rodriguez. This felt like, you know, just a nicer woman that was involved in this. And then you had Viola Davis, who, without bringing up Suicide Squad, if you look at her career as such, and even Suicide Squad included, sorry, she's a very, when I say tough female lead, I mean not in terms of physical attributes, although she does look like she'd actually stab you.
Yeah.
But her sort of, what's the word? Her performance. I think the performance is the right word, and how they tend to write her characters that she can play them beautifully. And that she's that sort of that strong lead that you need. I mean, the original favorite for this was Jennifer Lawrence, who definitely could not have led this film. Because for what the film is, obviously with Viola Davis being the elder of the 4, being with Liam Neeson, who was obviously the leader of the crew, it made sense in terms of what they went for. I thought the 4 women they go for, they all worked, and I kind of expected those stereotypical heist traits, but then they didn't need them, and I think it felt quite new. It felt quite fresh for the whole heist. But then again, it angled back to me. This did feel like more of a drama, and I think you're right. The one with the complete story arc is sorry, not Viola, Elizabeth Debicki. I would agree that Viola Davis has one as well, but she's the lead role. She has to have one. Whereas some of the others, they're not as important as the main two. So it does focus on Elizabeth Debicki and Viola Davis the most. I would add Colin Farrell into there for some other stuff that across the film. But when you've got an ensemble cast, the problem is that ensembles are word chucked around so easy nowadays. If you've got a great film with 3 leads and like 3 cameos, someone will say that's an ensemble cast, but it's not. This is an ensemble cast to the point that I don't want to use the term. I don't want to use the term that like spin off someone, but the women, the main 4 women, they've kind of filmed themselves, right? You feel that the men could have had their own film because they've had, even though you're with them for a minute, they've all got their own character arcs when they're introduced. Then you've got the whole political agenda of it all. So you've got another group that could have had a really boring drama about politics, and then you've got the villains who you feel that you could have known more about. So I think everybody in this, every person that the camera focuses on, everybody that's substantial, whether it's a supporting role or a lead role, you feel as if they're earned within this ensemble product together, but it's not this ensemble where there's actually 2 people you care about. Like Lord of the Rings, every single person has their place. Even the supporting characters who are going to be in 20 minutes across 2 films, they've got their moments because you need them for that film to work. And I feel that ensembles are a phrase that, someone would say the Dark Knight's an ensemble cast. It's not an ensemble cast. It just is a film with a great cast. It's an ensemble piece as such. Do you sort of know where I'm coming from? And I think this is one of the few films where the term ensemble is defined within this film, from character acts, from story perspectives, all the way through from start to end. I just loved it.
I did find myself in some moments that I think, because it is such an expansive cast, as you said, there's like the whole political agenda. You've got Colin Farrell's character, you've got Brian Tyree Henry and Daniel Kaluuya's character as well, that's kind of caught up in this big web of this whole operation. Like, there's the political side to it. They're running for mayor, and you've got that whole plot running alongside it as well. It's kind of like a B story. There were moments in the film where I felt like characters were in a scene and then disappeared for a big substantial amount of the running time, and just when I got to the stage where I was like, we haven't seen that character in a long while, boom, then the scene would come in with them. So I do think the juggling act was very tough for the movie. But also, the movie is 2 hours 10 minutes long, and I felt every minute of that running time. As we said at the beginning, inherently the plot is very simple, and this is me being sort of, not going with like cliche tropes of a heist movie, but certain expectations of a heist movie. For me, as it's a heist movie, that should be your big finale. That should be what everything's building to. That should be the most exciting part of the movie. And without giving anything away, the heist is pretty much over within a minute. And it felt very anticlimactic, and it didn't really feel earned at the end. But the movie itself felt very anticlimactic to me. The villain element as well, you have, I could talk about another performance now, Daniel Kaluuya, who is without a doubt the best performance in this entire movie. He's the most interesting and brutal character as well. He is terrifying in every single scene that he's in this movie. Even that side, like the quote-unquote villain aspect, felt very lacking towards the end of the movie. It felt like that was ramping towards something, but ultimately kind of stuck the landing a little bit. So I guess I had a problem with the pacing of the movie and ultimately what it culminated to. It didn't feel like anything was really achieved at the end. I didn't get that big sense of, all these people coming together, achieving this heist and the effects of it afterwards. It felt very sort of like it just tapered off at the end.
See, I think with this, I don't see you felt every minute. I was in the opposite. I kind of like loved every minute.
You wanted more. You told me you could have.
I could have. I mean, you can see why this was a TV series originally, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not that I'm saying. I mean, this was a great film, but could you? 6 hour Widows. That would have been absolutely incredible. But the heist itself was very quick, and that's what also made me think. Is this a heist or is it a drama? Because it wasn't this stereotypical. We're going to plan every single. We're going to have the opening act of the film, planning opening, setting the scene, what's happening. Then we're going to have Act 2 where we're going to plan the heist, and Act 3 where we do the heist. It was actually kind of. This is a drama. There's a heist within it. That's the kind of vibe I got, because as the film progressed, my thoughts on the film were like radically changing, And I just kind of stood there in like disbelief for like some of the things I was seeing. That just what happened was absolutely insane. But Daniel Kaluuya, I mean, I haven't really spoke about Get Out on this channel. I had a brief mini rant on our last Battle of the Brackets where I basically said, and my thoughts on Get Out as a film is that the first hour and 15 minutes I think are magnificent, and I really didn't like the last 25 minutes because it completely undid itself and jumped into that stereotypical horror ending slasher, words coming round full circle, etc., etc. But Daniel Kaluuya in that film is magnificent, and
I mean,
Get Out the first hour
as well in like the last couple of years is fascinating to watch when you see his earlier roles like Johnny English Reborn and little bit roles.
He was Johnny English.
Yeah, he was in the sequel, Johnny English Reborn. Yeah, he was the sort of new buff that they brought into it, his sidekick.
Oh, wow. See, like I said, I think I watched Mitch and Webb. It's his comedic duo recently. Their sketch show for the very first time. He was in one sketch within that 4 series. I was like, it's the kid from Get Out. And, he's broke through. He's around. And this film, he is easily the best thing about it by a mile off.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, I know you said you dislike this film and that he stood out, which is great, but from someone, this is equaling the praise that for someone that loved it and everybody in it, that every ensemble person did their piece great. From my perspective, the fact that he was neck and above the likes of Liam Neeson, Viola Davis, Elizabeth Debicki, Colin Farrell, he stood out on all of them, and there is not one single. And every single time he came on screen, it was that kind of smug villain that you want to see more from, and just his actions on screen were just absolutely incredible. But if you go out to Get Out, his eyes. I spoke to you before we hit record that Tom Hardy's eyes in Dunkirk or something. But Chris Nolan said Tom Hardy's got more talent in one eye than most actors do. Mm-hmm. Daniel Kaluuya's eyes could win an Oscar by themselves.
Yeah,
that just had the intensity of what he can do with them. It's just magnificent, and they use it to full advantage in this. There's one absolutely incredible scene on a basketball court, which shocked the entire cinema. There were people were gasping, and it came out of nowhere. Even I was caught off guard. I thought it was just magnificent. Like everyone else, I just want more from each person.
Maybe a bit of an easy comparison to go to. Maybe not wholly justified. Depends on your opinion. In some of those scenes that you were talking about, like those intense Daniel Kaluuya scenes, I was kind of getting like Heath Ledger Joker moments, like those confrontations, like he has with Maggie Gyllenhaal in that movie, where the whole audience is just hushed silence. You don't know what's to come. And then when they hit you with like a sudden stab of violence, it feels brutal. It feels like it has that impact behind it. Maybe obviously not to that extent, but like the few small scant scenes that you get in there definitely are effective and do have that impact. And like cinema violence is kind of dime a dozen because we're so desensitized to it now. But every so often a movie or a scene comes along where even I go like, oh God, that looks like it hurt. When it is that really gritty, realistic, nasty violence.
And he has 2 of them.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't want to spoil it, but if you've seen the film, if you've watched this film, the basketball scene and the bowling alley scene. Mm-hmm. Actually, they're both in the trailer.
Yeah, that's like 2 scenes I've seen now in a bowling alley. Like There Will Be Blood and this movie that have 2 of like the nastiest like moments I've seen.
And it was just terrifying. But that's what I love about Steve McQueen. That he's not afraid to hold back. Mm. You've got a lot of. I mean, rewinding the clock to 12 years to save, that was very brutal. And of course, that would have toned down some of the stuff that he went through in that film.
Yeah.
But in this, Steve McQueen's now at that point of his career where, he did 12 years. If he won Oscars, he's done 3 films that done very well beforehand. He's now in a position where people want to work with him. And if you're a producer, you just want to get in on his films. You want to be the guy that produces Steve McQueen film because he picks them so wisely. And this, to have him and Gillian Flynn together, could you imagine sitting in that room? The writer of Gone Girl with the director of 12 Years a Slave, just them coming together with this story. Mm-hmm. And this story does change. This isn't a stereotypical beat by beat. There are twists, revelations that happen throughout. That there's the odd one that's predictable, but even that predictable one then sways into something else. They just constantly bounce around, and it was just a joy to watch this and see it unfold. And I just come out of that cinema I just started thinking about it for about an hour or 2. And every single time I thought about one thing for 10 minutes, I think about something else. How did I forget that? And I think about that for 5 minutes. And I forgot something else. But it just keeps bouncing around. And it was just fantastic.
See, that's completely the polar opposite to us on this review. You came out, you were thinking about the movie, you were mulling it over probably for like, a couple of days or something. I walked out of this and it was almost like someone took the flashy thing from Men in Black and just flashed it right in front of my face. Instantly forgettable to me. And it's not that kind of that the movie's bad. It's a well-directed movie. It's well shot. It's well acted. I think it just didn't have an impact on me. I didn't connect with any of the characters or the situation they were in. And as that's obviously the massive driving force behind the whole movie, it didn't leave an impact on me. Do I think the performances are bad? No. I think my problem comes with, I don't know, maybe the script, perhaps, I don't know, but it's more the characterizations of your main corral of female leads. I think you could have had Viola Davis as that very stoic sort of leader quality, that very tough, buff kind of female character. But I think you needed more of a discernible personality between the women, and I feel like I didn't get that. Cynthia Erivo character is a very similar character to Viola Davis in terms of her build, in terms of her mannerisms and everything like that. Michelle Rodriguez is kind of what we've come to know her from either in Lost as the character of Ana Lucia or in the Fast movies where she is that tough, buff, kind of stern leader-like character. As I said, the only one that I thought had any kind of semblance of character that was in any way different from each other was Elizabeth Debicki, who I thought was great. We're introduced to her. As I said, she's in this abusive relationship. She goes through moments in the film where she kind of wants the money for her own end. She wants an easy life. She wants to be pampered. She wants to be adored, that kind of thing. Kind of like her mother was. We get a nice scene in the movie between them two. And then she goes on that journey throughout the movie. So out of all of them, she was the only one that was different. And I think it was that differentiation between the main characters that I had a problem with. Also, the villain aspect, I would have liked to have seen that dialed up a little bit more in the film, especially towards the end. It just didn't leave any impact on me. This is going to be this year's Manchester by the Sea for me, I think. Where
that's a low blow.
Where everyone's going to love this movie. Tate said like his performance was sold out. I went at, I think it was like a 1 o'clock showing, maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon, midweek, and it was packed. So obviously a lot of people are going to see this movie. I did overhear some conversations coming out of the cinema saying like they could have chivied the movie along a bit, like it did slow, it did drag in some parts, and I thought it did as well. I don't know. It didn't leave any impact on me. I almost have no opinion on this movie. When we hit record today, I thought like I don't know how I'm going to get a review out of this thing. For me anyway, because I don't have much to say. As I say, I came out of the cinema and I did kind of instantly start to forget it. The one moment that I did love and caught it out was a soundtrack choice, a bit of music that's used in the background in one of the stores. I think that's where Michelle Rodriguez lives. It's a Wasp song called Wild Child, which is one of my favorite 80s songs. So it was nice to hear that. Very random choice. But yeah, I guess we could talk about the soundtrack as well. Very much a Hans Zimmer soundtrack, but it's kind of, it filters into the background. You don't notice it. It's what you come to expect from a modern Hans Zimmer score. There's one piano bit of music that I think is used in the trailer. I think it's used about 2 or 3 times in the film. That was really effective, but there was no like main theme, and the music wasn't really noticeable or anything like that.
I would say this was a comment to Hans Zimmer. I didn't remember anything from the soundtrack because I was so.
You were in the movie.
Yeah. I was listening to every single word, and I don't think I've ever been into a film. And when I say this is my film of the year, this is this stereotypical. Oh, George has said this again. No, I've said that 3 times this year. No, 4. 3 Billboards, then Avengers, then Mission Impossible. Now this. That's still my top 4. Everything that's come since this. But I am taken to the point where I say this is one of the best films I've seen over the last few years. Where this is how into it I was, and I couldn't believe what I was watching. I just wanted more from it. I want to see it again. The character pieces, the fact that, I mean, okay, this is really important, but you know, who's Elizabeth Debicki in an abusive relationship with? The fucking Punisher,
right? Yeah.
Like, and then wait for it, I'm gonna blow your mind. There's a guy in this, someone else that Elizabeth Debicki is heavily involved with. He's a very squirmy character. It's very. You feel I've recognised this guy. What's his job is? My job is that I design and create buildings. Then you find out that wait, this guy was the first architect in Inception who created and designed dreams. My head exploded. I just sat there on the sofa after a game, just
He's the guy
staring in
who
my head.
kind of looks like Cillian Murphy, but with a bit of facial hair.
Yeah, like B-Tech Cillian Murphy. That's what I thought. Yeah, you know, when you really recognise someone, it's from something, but they're not substantially big enough to know what it is.
I just remember
And
that
I just go after
Inception where he's getting dragged out the helicopter as the helicopter's taking off, and he's getting sort of like, you know, taken away by the business executives. Yeah.
I just thought that was funny, but
He was good in this movie. It was nice to, because we didn't really get much of him in Inception in like the first 5 minutes that we get of him. So it was nice to see more of him in this.
But I thought it was great. The characters, I thought everyone played their part. But like I said, the soundtrack, I didn't really notice. I haven't. Still, the trailer song's still in my head. It's been in my head for a couple of months, but finally getting to see this film was just great to see. Colin Farrell once again, beautiful at playing a very squirmy, sort of slimy character that you love, but you also hate at the same time. But then you kind of just, what's the word? Not that you accept him, like you kind of want him to do well, even though you don't like him. You like him more than the other guy that's involved, and everything Colin Farrell comes around. This is spoilers, I can't say, but Colin Farrell's story arc comes full circle in the unintended way, but it works so well for what they were doing. But it just reeks back to the point that every single person that in this has a reason to be in this. And I don't think there was anyone wasted, and I don't think there was anybody that overstepped their mark. I think every option they chose, they had the right person for that.
Yeah. I think we said everything we pretty much can for spoiler free, so we'll get into spoilers now. I don't have a huge amount to talk about, just probably a few key scenes that I wanted to bring up. I want to start with The Punisher. This is like the second John Bernthal movie I've seen since, like, you know, like Baby Driver and this, where he's out of the movie in the first couple of minutes. Like he pulls a heist and he dies during it, and then we never see him again through the rest of the movie.
I mean, he didn't die in Baby Driver. He just said, "If you never see me again, I'm probably dead."
So we're meant to infer that he died after that, perhaps.
I thought the choices were right. Liam Neeson was perfect. Obviously, the big spoiler with him, he's still alive, which blew my head. I can't remember the last time I had a twist like hit me in the head. I just kind of, I mean, I know I've jumped way ahead than I should have done, but with the whole heist stuff, like John Bernthal, I thought we'd get more. I thought we'd see. I thought it would start off with the blokes. They plan the heist. They die. Then we get the women introduced. But actually, it starts at the heist. It starts at their death. The first 2 minutes of the film is literally the trailer.
Yeah.
Which I've got so much respect for, because, you know, to me, I don't like films that waste their time. I mean, I always go hard back to the Spider-Man trilogy. Spider-Man 1, he gets bitten by the spider in the first 5 minutes. And they don't drag it out. Amazing Spider-Man, they dragged it out up to about 45 minutes. You know, I don't like films that drag. This just hits you, goes in there, doesn't it? It just goes straight in. You learn everything you need to by the editing in the first 5 minutes. Whose husband died, you get a sense of that husband's character and a sense of their personal life, and that's where the film's going to progress from. And I thought it did a fantastic job of doing that. But yeah, John Bernthal, gone.
In terms of the cast, like obviously Liam Neeson and John Bernthal are probably the main prominent two actors out of the guys that are playing the husbands. So when you cast people like that, I do have a certain expectation that you cast them for a reason. They're big names. You're probably not going to cast them to have them in the movie for about 2 or 3 minutes of the intro. And when we do get the footage at the beginning of the heist going wrong, of what we think at the beginning, like the SWAT teams blowing up the van with all of them inside, the way it was shot and the way that Liam Neeson kind of gets out the van with the money and everything like that, I don't know how it's, I'd have to watch the movie again to see how exactly they put the footage together, but something did seem off about it, like they were leaving something out. And I did go in with the intention of thinking, like, I bet one of them, if not all of them, are still alive, or maybe Liam Neeson. I didn't expect them to give that away in the way that they did in the movie, where she goes to the person he was having an affair with, and she doesn't even confront him in that scene. She knows in that moment.
See, I didn't clock onto this. This is what my friend said to me. When that scene happens with the dogs, they're very smart, because the dog barks when it sees that leather jacket originally, and you're quite upset because, oh, the dog remembers it's the owner. But they use it to play into. So when he goes into the fourth widow's house, I thought, oh my God, they've had an affair.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got the bottle on the sides and just the other room, which I assumed was a bedroom. And in my head, the 4-month-old baby was Liam Neeson's baby. So I turned around to my friend like, whoa, Liam Neeson had an affair the entire time. So I thought Viola Davis thought it was an affair and was crying. I didn't actually clock on that she'd worked out he was alive. That's what my friend thought. So now you've said that, you've balanced it 2 against 1. So I'm assuming it was meant to be that. But I had my complete, because I was thinking so much. I was always thinking ahead, thinking what's next, and I never considered the fact that he was alive until like they opened the door.
Yeah,
I was just there like, what?
I think when she sees the hip flash, that's the moment she knows that he's behind the door. He's still alive, even if she doesn't know that he's there. I think she did when she presses up against the door, doesn't she? I think, and then turns around and walks out. So, but maybe they do keep it ambiguous. Maybe you could look at it that way. And then ultimately, when we get to the end, we get like a little bit of a standoff with them. But I wanted to talk about the heist first. So they get the combination to the safe to get what they need, and then they have a confrontation with Colin Farrell's dad. Now, I don't know if you got this as well, but I went to see this with someone, and we both thought the same thing had happened. One of the girls gets shot. Now, I thought it was Michelle Rodriguez that got shot. When you kind of see behind the balaclava, it kind of looks like Michelle Rodriguez, and they have these voice distorted things that they use. And it sounded like Michelle Rodriguez like screaming in pain as they were dragging her down the stairs. It was only until they get out the building that you realize that it's Elizabeth Debicki's character who's been shot and Michelle Rodriguez is helping her. So that kind of threw me a little bit. I don't know if you picked up on that as well, or...
I didn't really... I thought Elizabeth Debicki got shot and Michelle Rodriguez shot Robert Duvall.
Oh, okay.
That's the way I thought, but I didn't. It was hard, but I loved them. I loved the little voice changes in the masks because the kids have them at the start of the film, and it sounds really weird, but like it was so cool because it's like a little kid's toy that they're using for a heist. It just showed like how not inefficient they are, but you know they aren't pros. They're using voice changes, but like kids ones from a shop for £5. But it was hard to see what was going on because obviously they all had the balaclava and the masks on. But what I say about Robert Duvall's death is that that's when it came full circle. I was talking about that Colin Farrell says to him literally 20 minutes before, you know, everything will change when you are dead and I'm in power. You know, you won't be able to see what I do. I interpreted that is Colin Farrell just going to sentence his dad to death. Obviously, what happened is that the dad's deaths is the only reason Colin Farrell won the election because the radio presenter literally said, you know, in a pity vote, the dad was murdered and Colin Farrell's now in charge. I thought, you know what, that was actually a great character arc, the father-son dilemma, that we want to keep the politicians in our family, we want to do it our way, when it's actually, I want to be a politician, but do it my own way, not your way. And that was offensive. And everything he said came back to haunt him. Yeah. No, I loved that.
I loved Colin Farrell in the movie. I thought he was really well. He did really well. I think it was not so much the fate of the dad, like him getting shot in that way is fine, him shooting one of the main cast. I think my biggest problem... you're going into it more of like the character piece and the drama film that it is, which is fair enough. Obviously, like that's what people are gravitating towards. I think I'm going into this as a fan of heist movies and expecting those same qualities of a heist movie. I want each individual character having their own particular set of skills, to quote a Liam Neeson line. Like each one, like going into the heist, like right, we've got the tech savvy one, we've got this person, and they're all going to work together to make the heist happen. When they all kind of just like bundle in, I think like you've got Cynthia Erivo's character who kind of throws a bunch of flashbangs into a car or like flares, and that's it. Like everyone else just kind of bundles in with guns and to get the job done. It didn't seem like there was any finesse to it, and I think it's me expecting those tropes of a heist movie and not getting them. So ultimately, going into a heist movie and it's over in about a 30-second to a minute standoff. And then you kind of get like a little epilogue sequence where obviously Liam Neeson shows up and he has a confrontation with his wife. That's diffused very, very quickly. And then we get this very perplexing ending sequence in a cafe. Never before have I seen such a perplexing ending in a cafe since Dark Knight Rises in this one. And it just feels very... I don't know. Was it a genius ending or was it kind of lackluster ending?
I didn't think it was perplexing. I just thought they casually bumped into each other. But it just what I did like was the only thing she wanted to do with her money, it wasn't for herself, it was all to go to a school. She wanted the school named after her son.
Yeah.
Speaking of her son, the most fucking brutal scene of the film. So they build up when I first jumping all the way back, when it was Liam Neeson's funeral, the grave said 1990 2000. I was like, hey, is this a typo? Like, Liam Neeson's not 19. And then I realized they must have had a son. And then the film, in the very occasional flashback, talks about the son. And that there's this really powerful scene where, like, they're at his funeral. There's almost no one there except Viola Davis and Liam Neeson. She's trying to put the gloves on him, and like she's upset. And Liam Neeson just can't face looking at the body. He rips up the flower, and he's just standing on this. It's a great shot, and it kind of says that there was something between them that wasn't working. And then, when they showed the son's death, that Liam Neeson said to him, "You come home right now. You're going to come home. You're going to give me the car back, or whatever it was. You're going to come home right now. Do it." And in the instance of which the son, you thought, oh, there's going to be a car crash or something. Nope, not that. It's the new era of the, well, not new era. They've been doing it for years. The crooked police.
Mm-hmm.
There's a black guy in a nice car. They pull him over, and
they tell him to get his hands up or get out the car, don't they?
They tell him to get his hand up, and he just goes. He just goes to put the box in the glove box, and he gets within a millisecond shot twice, and you're kind of left there like, ooh. And what the impact with that is that's real, man. Like that happens all the time in America. It's happened so much that it's like not even frightening seeing it anymore, but seeing it in this capacity on screen, you hear about these stories, but you see something, you see it and you think it's believable, but it's the guilt that Liam Neeson has from that is the fact that he made his son turn around and that he's got the guilt with the son's death. I thought that was very powerful. Very, very powerful flashback.
Definitely, I think certainly in the last few years we are seeing more films that are tackling this as well. Not just that, music, and I know that music has been tackling this issue for a long time, but it definitely seems like we're having a bigger push with it. Maybe due to the current political climate, perhaps. I don't know, but you look at films like Get Out, even like Steve McQueen's previous film, 12 Years a Slave. Obviously, that's going back, but he is still very much keeping those things that are still happening today within his films, even if it's not the main focal point of the movie. In this one, it's still very much there and influences the character. I don't really know. I think we've pretty much covered everything, really, haven't we, to be honest, in this movie?
I think so.
I think with this film, this might merit me to give this a second watch at some point. I think this film will probably get a re-release anyway towards Oscar season, so I might watch it then with like a different pair of eyes, knowing that it wasn't the film I was expecting it to be. Having already seen it, maybe I'll pick up on more stuff, maybe more, character arcs and intricacies and things like that. As it stands right now, it didn't really leave any impact with me. I found it kind of boring. I didn't really gravitate to any of the characters. Some great performances in there, but none really connected with me, with the exception of Daniel Kaluuya's character, who I thought was very intense. Absolutely owned every single scene he was in, and those were the scenes that kept me on the edge of my seat more so than the heist or the predicaments of the main characters in the movie.
I'm predicting 4 Oscar nominations. Best Actress Viola Davis.
Yep.
And this isn't win. This is what I think. I'm very sort of reserved, and when I say things will get nominated, I don't mean win, but I think we're going to get nominations for Viola Davis. I think Daniel Kaluuya will get nominated for Best Supporting Actor. And I think this will get a nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Film. I think it'll have them 4 solid, which would be great. But in terms of with this film, I had very high expectations. Expectations were raised when I saw those reviews come through from the festival, seeing how well it was doing. And I went in with incredibly high expectations. I was blown away. And to me, not in terms of a high one, but I turned around to my friend in the cinema and I said, this is on par with Heat. And I don't know if I've ever said that before.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't think I ever said that before. I said that to him, and the more I think about this film, the more I want to see it again, and the better it's getting in my head. And it was just fascinating. But I'm very intrigued to see, because this doesn't officially open in America till next Friday, which is very silly because it's the same day as Fantastic Beasts. But again, this isn't a film about money. This has its own audience. I don't see many young teens wanting to go. I think there's be a lot of older people that want to go. The cast is good enough to attract people of specific ages and whatnot, but it left me wanting more, and I do want to see more from Steve McQueen. Like I said, he's very much director now that 4 films in. He made a name for himself already, and it's just enhancing that now. Yeah.
Interestingly, like the last point I'll throw out before we round up, the majority of like the age group of the people when I went to see were elderly. There's probably people over 50 were at this movie. That was the main audience for the film. Because when I went to the cinema, there's a thing at my cinema called Silver Screen, where you get a lot of sort of like older films from like last year's Oscars or earlier in the year. that played for like old age pensioners, and I thought it was going to be something like that, but no, clearly they knew this was an Oscar movie. It's got a big crowd, as we said. Tate's was sold out, so it'll be interesting to see how this performs. It's doing very, very well critically, and I'm sure it will get a push towards Oscar season, and we will be talking much more about this movie as we get towards the end of the year into January, when we start pushing our Academy Awards live stream again. So that would do it for our review on Widows. Be sure to comment, subscribe, let us know what you thought of the movie. If you've seen it already, as we just said, like US viewers probably start commenting next week when it comes out. In terms of movies this month, our big two hitters are probably Fantastic Beasts 2 and Creed 2. Hopefully sometime next week, I'm going to be on with one of my mates doing a stream on the Rocky movies. We're going to do one big video. We're going to talk about all 7 movies in one video. Hopefully get through them fairly quickly. That should be a good video. Look out for that. And yeah, next week we'll have Fantastic Beasts review. And towards the end of the month, a new Battle of the Brackets episode that is going to tie in with Fantastic Beasts in some way. I don't know if we're going to announce it now, but we'll probably announce it close to the time. That should be a very interesting one to do.
I'm trying to remember what it was.
We may as well just
say it. You say it.
It was like greatest film beast, wasn't it? / creature.
Oh yes, this one. Yes, we're fine tuning the title. That's going to be on Saturday the 24th. Was it Saturday the 20th? Yes, it was Saturday the 24th of November. I am back this week. As someone's put in the comments, I thought George had moved. I have moved, and I am home for the weekend. There's such a thing as living somewhere else, like renting, because you're like 5 minutes from work and having weekends off to come home. But I have good internet tonight. Hurrah!
Yeah, so there'll be more trailer reaction videos from me as well. I'm going to be recording a bunch tomorrow, some that I need to catch up with, including like the new Jungle Book trailer that came out. I need to go back and do the Curse of La Lorna. And there was another one which I don't know right now, but I'll get on a video for that tomorrow. That'll do it for us right now. Thank you for SeaWorld Man for commenting. And yeah, until the next video, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.